Example 9.4. From the hub creation example, let the company fund the entirety of its project, that is the initial cash flow, by bank borrowing. Carry out a scenario analysis of the project if the borrowing interest rates are 2% and 15%. So let's get to work here. We have a capital investment of minus 375 and a working capital cash flow of minus 90 at time t equals 0. Let's assume that we finance it. So we say equals minus sum of this and this. So in other words, if finance the entire of the capital investment and the working capital cash flows with the help of financing. So this is going to be $T $3 colon $W $3. And so that is our incremental cash flow. These are all incremental cash flows, but now we have taken a loan. So first let's just put the operating cash flows from the previous example. So these are the operating cash flows and we just enter those here. Next up, we will put the salvage value in capital investment cash flows and minus of the loan at time equals minus of 465 and then equals minus of. So everything that we put in will be reversed at the time t equals 20. So these are all the cash flows. Now what are the incremental cash flows? So obviously here we've added these up, but here we'll add these. Oops. So it should be $T3 and $W3. We're not fixing 3, we're only fixing the column numbers. But we also have to add the interest cost or the interest burden of this loan. So this is going to be $1 times $U $3. So as we move to the right, T and W shouldn't change to U and V, nor should the U3 become V3 or V4 or anything like that. It should stay U3, but the $1 should become $1 as we shift to the right, because in the right is the 15% rate of borrowing. The borrowing cost has gone up. So our incremental cash flow at 2% is 16.21. Control C, that is copy, shift control down, control down, shift control up, control V. These are our incremental cash flows at 2%. And we'll get something similar. So all I have to do is just do a control R here. And you can see, because the cost burden is so high, that there are negative cash flows for a long time. And then the project turns up positive cash flows. Okay, what is the NPV at an MARR of 15%? So 0.15, comma. So remember, because we've funded the entirety of our initial cash flow, there is no initial cash flow. Cash flow is 0. So the NPV becomes 372.43 and minus 5.95 respectively. What it tells us is that we can almost afford a borrowing cost of 15% if we fund the entirety of our project using debt, just because our initial cash flow became 0. And that's the only difference between example 9.3 and 9.4. In example 9.3, because we had such a large initial cash flow outflow, the NPV could never recover. Whereas in example 9.4, even a little bit of funding at a high cost could completely change the dynamic of the project for us. And so that's why we got at 2% a very highly profitable project, which became slightly, barely profitable at 15%. And that is example 9.4. Thank you for listening.